the first response, she will cry. She will cry, okay? Because to her, if my husband is here, I will be so fearful, right? So fearful. Even the thought of my husband being near, the feeling of fear. But after they manage to regain, they manage to compose themselves, then they will say that I want him to change. I want him to get help.
I'm Parkson, a father and grandfather, a relationship coach, and author of The Modern Day Dad.
And I'm Hafiz, a father of 4, a transformational coach, and a dad in progress.
We Are Dads Too is a podcast for fathers by fathers. Each week we have conversations about different aspects of fathering. We will also be talking with experts to get their opinions or have other dads to join us too.
Because we are dads too, we understand the challenges dads face. Our children grow up way too fast, so we need to take effective action that involves personal and lasting change for our children and also for ourselves. Let's go on a transformational journey together because we are dads too. Hi, Paksan.
Hello, Hafiz. Good to see you again. We are back again. But
Yes.
today we're not alone.
Yes, it's not just the two boring
Old man.
old men talking. Right, we have a Rose
Yes,
among the two Tons.
Tons. That's
Yeah,
right.
we have a guest, very special guest today, who we have invited specially for this particular theme that we have been talking about.
Because the last episode we were talking about conflict management within a marriage. And when conflicts get out of hand, that's where violence can take place. And so today we are going to be talking about domestic violence.
Yeah, this is in line with our theme on relationship quality between husband and wife. So it's very much important for us to not only look at the preventive aspect, but also how do we intervene when it becomes a crisis.
That's right.
For
And
example,
what
yeah.
are the platforms or avenues available, for family members who are feeling threatened or even, suffering, experiencing some kind of violence and abuse? Where can they go to for help?
Yeah, so the best person to introduce her is herself. We have today Zaharah Ariff. All right, I want to call her madam. I say no, just call me Zaharah. Okay, so Zaharah is here today. Please tell us where you come from, your background, and then the institution that you have started together with some other founders. Yes.
Hello. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this very relaxed and casual conversation. Yes, I am one of the founding member of Casa Women's Home, but now it is called Casa Limited, right? So together with me, some other very professional people who set up this, who set up the shelter first, to help women and children who are facing violence. And as time grows, as we grow, we expanded our services. So now it is called Casa Limited, and but the shelter service remain. Right. What we expand is our other services like the campaigns to prevent violence even from happening, right, in a family. Yeah, and the other service that we are also expanding, but relatively new, is the post care, which is to assist family who wants to be united again, who wants to go back to the matrimonial to the matrimonial home to make good with the family. So we also assist this vulnerable family to see how they can be supported further.
Wow, that's quite comprehensive. So, yeah, so you're also doing advocacy.
Yes.
Yeah, and sending out a message about, this is a very important thing. This is real. Domestic violence, yes, I think people have heard of it, but how, what's the level of awareness, do you think, among Singaporeans or people living in Singapore about the level of incidents, occurrence of domestic violence? Are people even aware that it is, quite significant?
I think now there's a lot of message put out there compared to the previous years. Yeah, we can see now, the advertisement even appears in the on the television, right? Stop domestic violence, awareness on elder abuse, that kind of thing. So I think that's the main medium, right, for to outreach to a lot of viewers. So I think people are aware, but perhaps more can be done for them to fully understand the severity of the violence itself and the impact.
on
Yes.
humans' lives,
Correct.
psychology.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's not a coincidence that we are dads too. The audience are mainly men. Probably there's some women eavesdropping out there, but we welcome all of you. What about the awareness among men? Do you think there's a difference?
Awareness among men?
Yeah, in terms of the seriousness of this domestic violence, and what are the avenues that they can go to, to resolve and to overcome if they encounter such a crisis?
Largely, I wouldn't say 100% all are men perpetrators, right? I wouldn't say that. But largely, what we encounter are men, the person who caused hurt, right? In that family when violence happened. So for men, when for them, how they want to get help, right? I mean, we don't want to say that there's no hope. There's always hope. There's always ways for people to change, right? So there's no such thing as I grew up, I'm a victim of family violence, therefore forever I will be the victim, or I will end up being the perpetrators. There's no such thing as that.
It's
right?
not something you inherit, or it's your genes.
Correct.
So it's something that can be overcome.
Correct. It's behavior, right? We can always
That's right.
we can always work towards to improve, right? So for there's always, whenever they talk about family violence, they always associate with the court, the police, right? So for men, sometimes can be very intimidating. For them to say that, okay, if I need help, I must go to the family court. I must go to the the police. The police will come and talk to me. All this cause sometimes intimidate the man, and sometimes even to the extent they felt provoked, right? Because to them, perhaps to them, it's a family matter. It's a private affair, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to happen behind closed door.
Yeah.
Why is it now being out there? Why is my family matters being discussed openly with strangers, right? So they felt very invaded to some extent. But we all know largely that it is not a private matters, right?
Well, if your neighbor can hear you, it's no longer
It's
private.
no longer private.
Yeah.
Correct. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Right?
It causes hurt,
Yes.
not only physical,
Yes.
but also mental,
Correct.
which may lead to even effect on children.
Mm.
And the children go to school,
Correct.
it may affect other children, their friends.
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah.
nothing is can be put as private
Correct.
when it has escalated to such
Correct.
extent.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Because they must understand that the minute they step out, the victim, whether it's the wife or the children, or sometimes even the men themselves become the victim, right? So the minute the victim step out from that house with all the bruises, with all the
It's all visible.
correct, right?
People
It's no
will start
longer
to
private.
ask questions.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting help is not only going to court, or but if the perpetrators in this segment, I will use the word perpetrators. If the perpetrators want to get help, they can always go to FSCs, Family Service Center, right? This is a very very amicable setting, right? No one is judging them. They just go there, talk to the social worker. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to hear them out and to explore with them what they can do in order to get help.
Yeah, and these are professionals. They are
Yes.
trained,
Correct.
and I think there are not many countries in the world that have so very strict requirement for social workers like Singapore, and structures in place
Yes.
to ensure that there is a process that you can go through.
Yes.
As you said, importantly, this is a private matter. It be kept private. right, by the professionals.
That's right. Yeah. In fact, in Singapore, there are, if I'm not mistaken, 3 agencies that are specifically designated as, child protection specialists as well as family violence specialists. So they are, particularly, looking into these areas and helping people who are either causing the violence or at the receiving end of it. So I think these are very, they're all available. You just need to call them and they are within reach. So go and talk to them, and I think that is the first step for you
Correct.
to help yourself
Correct.
and your family members.
But
Because
what usually trigger? Sorry, what do we trigger someone to get a place to stay in a place like a shelter, Casa Raudha, for example? Is it after they be served a PPO and then go to court and then there's a assignment by the court, or
No.
it's
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
how is it done?
Okay. It can done in various way.
Yeah.
What you just said just now is one of the way, right? Usually, what happens, they will be referred to the shelter by the FSCs, the Family Service Center. There's one channel. The other channel is from the hospital. Right, the hospital can also make referrals when they go there to get their injuries attended to.
Okay.
They can be referred by the police, right, and sometimes by the family court themselves.
Okay.
Right, so these are the channel that the victims can seek help to get themselves away from the violence, because they need to step out from the violence environment first before any other intervention can take place, right? If the violence is assessed to be very high risk.
Right.
and who will do the assessing of the level of violence?
I think the best person is the victim themselves, right?
Okay.
Yeah. But usually they will be assisted with the family service center, or the, like what you mentioned just now, the special, the family violence specialist centers. So these are the people that can assist to make the assessment. Also the medical social worker, right? These are when you talk to them, you can assess, right, how severe is the situation, right?
This kind of things, the violence, domestic violence, obviously, I think we all know it doesn't happen overnight.
Correct.
It probably has happened over a period of time. It started off with little things, losing a temper, getting angry, frustrated, irritated. And then eventually you begin to use physical force to change certain behaviors of your spouse or children. And then your force gets greater and greater. So I think in a lot of people's minds would be, prevention is better than cure. Why don't these people try to stop it before it reaches that point, where it causes physical harm, emotional harm, and things like that? What do you think?
These people you're referring to
The perpetrators.
why they didn't get help. Many factors, I guess. Could be like there's a lot of contributing factors to why they become the perpetrators, right? Why they become who they are. There's many factors, and one of the main thing that we sometimes hear, or we get to hear from the victims when they share. So the victims will say that growing up, they also witness, right? The person also witnessed that violence happening at home, or he himself, or the perpetrators themselves, they experience that violence firsthand, right? So there's so much anger contained in a child. Growing up as a child, there's so much anger, so much insecurity. When a child grow up in an environment that is not stable, there's so much insecurity in the child. So as they grow up, the anger grows with them. The insecurity grows up with them. And if it's not resolved, right, this is where sometimes as a child, when they look at how the parents resolve conflicts is by beating, yelling, shouting, using words, insulting words. They see that, okay, so when angry, this is how my parents react, and it works. At some point, At some point, my dad, after kicking, punching, all that, he gets what he wants, right? So maybe that is how it works. So to the child, that is normal. So growing up, to them, what is happening at home is normal. And when they grow up, that culture, that norm culture to them is part of their way of resolving issues. So they may not be exposed to other alternatives, other positive alternatives way that can be used, right, to manage conflicts.
Okay, I know that in the home, in the shelter, you do some quite creative ways to for therapy. All right, I mean, to when they stay there, I mean, the months and years they stay there, they go through certain programs, certain therapy. Maybe you can share some of those.
The unique one, huh?
Yeah, the unique one. I know there are a lot, right? Probably
There are few,
yeah,
there are few. But the unique one, I must say, is the garden therapy. Okay, garden therapy. We have this nice, nice garden, where we planted herbs and few other vegetables, all that. So I remember some of the women. I mean, not everyone born to do gardening, that kind of thing,
not
right? You
everyone is a
must
green
love the
thumb.
nature. You must have patience. You must love the nature. Right?
Love the nature and love to nurture.
Correct.
Ah, yes. Yes.
Correct. So there are some women who are very much into this. So when the opportunity arises for them to, instead of talking to a counselor, some people, they don't want to talk to counselor. To them, I have enough talking, right? I don't want to relive that moment, right? And we respect that, So they respond to different kind of therapy, right? So for us, we label it as garden therapy, right? So they go into the garden, they do wonders in the garden, and they talk to the plants. So they always tell me, talk to the plant makes me feel at ease. I feel peaceful.
As long as the plant don't talk
Don't
back.
talk back.
Otherwise you can't sleep.
They feel peace, at peace, right? Because to them, that is, and then they look at the plant grow. So to them it's like nurturing inside them. So and after that when they want, I remember one lady, after she looked after the garden very nicely, and she's so happy. Every time she goes to the garden, she felt very at ease, peaceful and happy, right? And then she said that she tend to forget everything. But when the time comes to discharge, the first thing that she asked me, what will happen to my garden? So it's something that she relates about happiness, about peace. Yeah, so that is one of the way that we encourage the woman to find a way to self-soothe and self-therapy.
Very interesting.
Interesting, because I think in this podcast, sometimes we share knowledge, share information, but that aspect of this podcast, we also share how to.
Yeah.
All right, the action part. How do we change? Because what I hear just now a lot is on habit. I mean, for example, the habit to become angry easily, the habit to only use one way of communication, scolding, yelling, And are there ways in which, yourself probably can share from your experience of handling cases like this? What would be some of the ways for them to practice daily and so that they can change certain habits, even if they are being abused? Because when you talk about conflict, right, or even abuse, is a two-way thing, right? It doesn't like one person, the perpetrator do something and the other person usually, is from their reaction that becomes the tit for tat. So is there a ways in which, as people who are in this situation of domestic violence, can change the way they do things, the way they act?
When we talk about relationship, it's always takes two. There's no such thing as one in a relationship, right? It always takes two, and it takes two hands to clap. But that does not mean that you're being provoked, therefore you violence. That's not mean that, right? Even when you're being provoked, there's other ways for you to manage the situation without being violent, right? So yeah. So when we talk about conflicts is actually does not mean that all conflicts are bad, right? Conflicts actually can, if it's better managed, it can actually make a person further develop the person as a person, as the family members. It's further develop the person if it's properly managed, right? So we can, there's always. So sometimes they feel that there's no help. They do not know how to manage conflicts. But actually, there's a lot of help out there. A lot of workshop for couples or that they can attend to, right? Sometimes over the radio, they have tips how to manage conflicts, right? But I think sometimes when we Google, just Google nowadays, a lot of information at the tips or at the your fingertips. So if they could just Google and look at how can they manage conflicts, marital conflicts, you can find a lot of information there. But here I maybe just one or two tips that I can share. Approach conflicts with tenderness, with love, tenderness, right? Because when you do that, it shows this love and tenderness. It comes from your words, right? You must assess the situation, right? When you want to approach the person, right? When you want to confront the person, about one issue, right? First, you must ask yourself, when I approach my wife, for example, if I were to approach my wife about this situation, how will she react? What is it that I want to come? What is the outcome I want to have from my conversation with my wife about this thing, right? Do I want to scold and make her feel small over the issue? Or do I want her to, acknowledge what is the issue and together come up with a co-solution, right? Co-solutioning the problem. That is one way of looking at things. What is your motivation when you want to approach the situation, right? How would your wife look at it? Are you going to approach it in front of everyone where everybody can hear how you address it to her? Sometimes, it's embarrassing, right? To be questioned in front of siblings or in front of children. Some of them I hear that, when they scold the wife in front of the children, and that makes the mother felt degraded. In front of my children, you call me stupid, you call me useless. Then how do you expect me to function as a mother to my children when my children hear all this from the father, right? So the word that we use, when you use kind words, I'm sure the conflicts, no matter how big, it will tend to make it smaller, Sometimes the conflict should not be bigger than the relationship, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, I think how you start your conversation matters, because
Correct.
if you start it on a softer note, it will tend to stay soft.
Correct.
Gentle, calm, everyone is calm. But if you introduce a subject, in a very harsh way, and says, hey,
Yeah.
everyone becomes immediately defensive.
Correct.
Right? And everyone's ready to either fight or flight, and usually it's fight.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe one thing, and that is, or rather through my own experience in life, I believe I've learned that no one can make you angry except yourself. So anger is a choice. So when people say, well, if so and so would just behave themselves and not do this and not do that, I wouldn't be angry.
Correct.
I find that, now based on with a little bit more wisdom, I realize that that's actually an excuse, all right, where you absolve your own responsibility of taking responsibility of your own actions and putting the responsibility totally on someone else, and say this person has to change in order that I will not get angry
Correct.
anymore. And I think that's part of conflict also, when in marriage, sometimes we are not happy with our spouse's behavior or children's behavior, and so we get angry. And another thing I learned is, when we get angry, what we are trying to communicate, we're actually trying to say something. And one of the things we try to say is, number one, of course, I'm not happy. But the other thing is, you better change. Or the other thing is, I want to show you how much I hurt.
Yes, correct.
I want to show you your actions have hurt me, and so now I want to show you how much it hurts. And so they use anger, which is a form of energy, to demonstrate, all right, to let that person have a taste of what he is feeling.
Correct.
And so that is kind of vengeful. So that's what's really happening, and I hope people understand that, and say that's actually not productive. You see, this is someone you love, your spouse, your children, all right, and you're going to spend the rest of your life together for a very long time. This kind of actions really just kind of disrupts that relationship. It strains that relationship, and it kind of puts you back a few steps, all right. And it takes many years to repair and recover, and it's a lot of work after that.
You were mentioning about men. They may not be so open at times for counseling, right? Maybe you can share some of the reasons why, and what would be an ideal avenue or ideal avenues, other forms of avenues that men can resort to, other than counseling. When something like domestic violence about to happen or have happened.
You're asking from a woman point of view, but I have two very knowledgeable men in front of me, and the man can give a very good answer why men shun away from counseling. I should be asking you both that question.
Yeah, we will answer that as men, but you need to answer this question as a social worker. And a woman, of course.
Yeah, as a woman and then a social worker, your professional point of view and from your experience interactions with couples. What is their excuse for not wanting to talk to somebody like a social worker or a counselor about their issues?
Yeah. I think men, largely we know that they don't like to talk. They don't like to talk about emotion. Something personal, they don't like to talk, right? When they have problem, any kind of problems, they don't even want to share it with their wife sometimes. What they can sweep under the carpet, they sweep under the carpet. What they can talk, sometimes they find comfort talking to their friends rather than to the wife, because the friend also male. So they're very, whatever things that they talk about is always at the surface. They talk a bit and then after that, they talk about something else. They don't go deeper. But women are different, right? When we talk about one thing, we go deep. We go deeper and deeper, right?
Not only deeper, but
Wider.
sideways,
Sideways.
upwards diagonally.
Yeah.
This is proven scientifically. It's due to the brain. Women's brain are structured differently as men.
Yes, we are very detailed person, women. Where else, I'm not, respect to all men. Not that I'm saying that they are not detailed person. But when it comes to problem, when it comes to emotion, they are not, they do not want to manage that, right? To them, somehow, in their perception, that they are born to know everything. They are born to lead the family. As a leader, they must be equipped with everything and they must know everything. And sometimes when they don't know, they find that to get help is to show their weakness, and they don't like that, right? They do not like to be told what is wrong with you or what is wrong with the family. And sometimes, especially when they know that the problem is very glaring, for example, financial. Right, financial is one of the many reasons, right, that cause conflicts in a family, right? And if they know that they cannot provide that, right, if they know that the problem is really about financial, and they know that there's no way that they can bring in more money, to them that is a weakness, because they know that
it's a sense of there's a sense of shame in them.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm not good enough.
Yes.
I'm not being a good husband, father, and things like that.
So when they have that insecurity, to them, if I were to acknowledge that, how would my family look at me? Right? So it's about shame. Right? So how would my family look at me? I cannot provide because I'm supposed to provide. I grew up thinking that I must provide. But actually nowadays in this modern society, right, where husband become house husband and wife goes out to work, these are normal nowadays. Right?
Yes, becoming more and more.
It's becoming more and more.
Yeah, and double income, right?
Double income, right? So it is something that the trend has changed, but the perception needs to change with the trend. Right? So that's one of it. The other part of it, of course, is when you go into counseling, right? You talk about a lot of things. You talk about your past. You talk about, So to the men, I'm very solution focused, right? Most of the men, you give me a problem, let's talk about that problem. You don't talk about the things, right? But sometimes when you want to heal a person, you need to explore deeper. And that is something that they are not comfortable, right?
Yeah. I thought it's a very good answer, especially when you ask we men, why is it like that? And I agree. All right, to that, to your views. When men come together, they will talk about usually about few things. Confirm, football or sports, politics, and for some men, other women. Not their not their wives, but about other people. So again, if
when they talk about their wives, when they talk about wives, they would put them all into one basket and call them women.
Women, as if the women is no identity, and it becomes so generic that
because all women, in their minds, all women are like that.
The other one is about how men are naturally or sometimes more drawn towards logical thinking. And because again, their role to provide solutions. When we talk, when husband and wife speak together, have a conversation, sometimes the man will focus on whatever you say. I have a problem actually, all right, but actually they don't want to hear the solution. They just want you to listen to them. I mean, be that emotional partner, right? And at the same time, don't have to think about solution, but just pay attention, be present. Although sometimes you cannot be, really 100% present, try your very best. Put aside the phone, don't try to look other places, try to, maintain eye contact. All this have to be part of the way we communicate, right? With our spouse, especially with our wife, especially. Yeah.
I think, men are known that they don't like to, but I don't think it's so much they don't like to. Maybe they are afraid of doing that. It's inconvenient. It's going into a very frightening, a very new territory that they're probably not used to. Okay, they're more comfortable in areas that are logical, full of data and facts and things like that. But when it comes to emotions, they do have it. I think it's about literacy. We talk about literacy, digital literacy, media literacy. This is another form of literacy. It's called emotional intelligence, right? And it's something that we have to learn. We're not naturally born with it. We are born with the potential to learn it, to pick up the skills, But along the way, during our childhood, especially, all these things can be suppressed. There's something called childhood emotional neglect, about how our parents deal with our emotions. When a child cries, feeling sad or feeling angry, how the parents deal with that child at that moment when the emotions are big, sends a message to the child about whether emotions are good, welcome, or they are bad, they cause trouble, and they're not important at all. And so a lot of us, if I may just talk about Asians or Singaporeans, we have many of us are raised by typical Asian fathers or typical Asian mothers, fathers who are silent, strong, stoic, don't show emotions, hardly say a word. All right, they are very good providers, and their main role is to discipline children. But beyond that, there's not much of affection and emotions and things like that. So we grow up being, in that sense, illiterate emotionally. And then now that we are in supposedly an intimate relationship with our spouses, our wives, we are like, handicapped. We are like handicapped, and we are not able to express myself. Now, when I say all this, I'm basically talking about myself many, many years ago. My wife was pulling her hair, and I says, "Why are you like that?" I said, "Don't you know?"
That's me.
That's me, But I've changed. All right. The good news is that I changed in a few ways. Number one, I had to deal with my past, and my main problem was my unforgiveness towards my father. So when I reconciled with him, a big load was taken off me. The blockage that was in my mind and my soul and spirit was removed. I was able to break through that, and also with the help of my wife. And my wife was the one who helped me a lot to teach me, to educate me about all this emotional stuff. So I basically watched her, and says, "Hey, you're showing some emotion. What is that? What do I need to do now? Now that you're feeling this way, what do I need to do?" So that's where I learned emotional intelligence. So the good news is for guys, you're not born like that, and you don't have to die like that. If I may put it very bluntly.
Yeah. And what age were you at that time? I mean, what was your...
Late 30s.
Late 30s. So this is very important because there's a theory that says the brain or habits start being formed at the age of 25. After that, you are basically 99.9% you are what you are in the future. However, there's also another theory of neuroplasticity that also explains that these synapses and connections in the brain do change and can affect the behavior.
That's right.
And therefore, dads, you're certainly in your 30s, maybe in your 30s or even 40s, us 50s, there is always hope.
There's always hope.
Not only that, you can still change.
Correct.
And to me, I will share this very simple habit cycle. You need to have three parts of the, to change any habit. One is to have a trigger. Right. Second is to respond to any of the trigger, and third is to have a reward. And when you're rewarded to do something to change your habit, you will again continue that cycle. All right. So it's a simple technique for us to change habits, and any habit for that matter. And for us to don't believe that we are made for life with that kind of behavior, character, personality, and there's no way that we can change.
Correct.
For the better or for worse.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. And I think there's no shame in asking for help. I think that's one thing we guys need to really learn is there's no shame in asking for help. We ask for help when we can't do certain things, right? You got problem with your PC, your computer, you call a specialist, you call an expert and says, "What do I do? Can you take a look at it for me?" Your car has problems, you send in to the service center for checks and all that. So there's nothing wrong in asking for help. Although our tendency is that we try to solve it ourselves.
Usually, I'm being called Mr. Fix It at home. Anything that is wrong, they'll call me. I'll try to fix it.
It's handy, so you are a handy man. It comes in handy. You see, but we don't have that kind of exposure, training, and experience to do it well, as good as the experts would do it, right?
Yeah, we can do it sometimes, but because we're not trained,
correct,
you can make it worse.
Yes.
You can make the situation worse.
Exactly.
Right? You're not fixing it, you are damaging it further.
Correct. Because we're not aware of other things that are connected. Everything's a system. You're changing your tap, but it's a system. If you miss one step, it could be bigger problems later on. So what I want to say, I guess, is that, probably a lot of men, they underestimate the issues. Or they say, yes, it's a problem. It's not a big problem. It is a problem, but not a big one. So don't panic. He's telling everyone not to panic. Actually, he's telling himself, don't panic, And on the other side of the coin is that he might be overestimating his ability to solve the problem, you see. And he says, well, okay, let me just do this, and then after he has tried that, still the problem persists, and he says, okay, I'll try something else. When I couples come to me for or when I hear about couples thinking about divorce, and I ask them, don't you want to seek help? I can help you. They say, oh, we have tried everything already. I said, what have you tried? We have tried this and that and that. I said, okay, I can see that. I agree you have tried everything, but do you know you have tried all the wrong things? It's like, trying to cure yourself of a certain sickness, which you do not know what exactly it is, by buying over-the-counter drugs. You're just trying this. It didn't have any effect. You try something else, and you try something else. In the end, you realize, actually, I've tried everything, the wrong things. Because I have not got the diagnosis right.
Right. going back to Zahara, yeah, you have met and seen many cases of women especially being undergoing domestic violence. Yeah, if let's say, all right, maybe you have asked them, what would you as a person who has been abused want to say to your husband? If you are given a chance, right, without him responding immediately, what is in your heart that you want to say? What would it be?
I remember I had this workshop that I run with the women in the shelter. It's about understanding cycle of violence, because they must know what is it that they are in, and how they can break free from the cycle. So one of the segment, I asked the woman, right, if your husband is in front of you right now, what do you want to say to the person? Right? The first response, she will cry. She will cry. Okay? Because to her, if my husband is here, I will be so fearful. Right?
Wow.
So fearful. Even the thought of my husband being near.
Yeah.
The feeling of fear. But after they manage to regain, they manage to compose themselves, then they will say that I want him to change. I want him to get help. I want him to change. I don't want the divorce, and I want him to change. This word, I want him to change, will come from most of them, most of the women. And some of the women, they may say that I am still going forward with the divorce, but I want him to change because he needs help, and I want him to be happy. Even at the stage where they are definitely saying, I do not want the marriage anymore, but they still want the husband to get changed and to be happy. Right? The husband to change and be happy and get help. That is still what they want.
Wow. If that is not love, I don't know what to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not only love, because if they have children, this is forever the father of your children.
Yes.
Correct.
All right, who will be given access to the
Correct.
children. And
Correct.
even I'm divorced, I still want you to be better, so that the children will still have
Correct.
a good father, father who they can rely on
That's right.
and grow up with.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, Paksan, you think we had a good conversation today?
Oh yes. I think we can go on and on.
Yeah.
Is any other things we want to squeeze out of
yeah. A lot, actually.
Yeah.
This won't be the first and the last. This is not the first and the last for us to call you in, if you don't mind. All right, we have 1 year, 50 episodes, hopefully. And we have a chance probably to continue our conversation.
Sure.
And really appreciate your frank sharing and insights. With this topic of domestic violence. It's not really something out there. Right? We need to really talk about it, right? And make a conversation out of it. And I
Sure.
think this is how we are doing it today. And I hope everyone out there is also starts and continue the conversation.
Yeah, I think we want to end on a note with by saying this to men out there, that do not be afraid of asking for help. There are many places you can go to, many people you can go to. I'm sure in our lives there is one person who you feel safe with. You can start with that person. You don't need to talk to somebody who has ever experienced something, because I think it's not so much about finding solutions. It's just about, first of all, opening up yourself. All right, being honest with yourself. And being honest with yourself means to, see things as they are, and being able to, if I may use the word confess, confess it to someone and says, this is what's happening to me. This is what I've been doing. I don't like it. I just need to tell someone. I think it starts there. If we can get to that point, that itself is the breakthrough. And I think for, even for us, as we are That's Two podcasts, all right, Hafiz is a coach, transformational coach. I'm with Center for Fathering. So yes, if you're a father or husband, we are here to help you. We're here to listen to you, talk to you, and just help you step by step to get out of this habit of using anger to resolve conflict and to solve problems at home.
Yeah. So maybe we give our special guest the last say. Anything you want to add before we end?
I think this is a very interesting conversation and a lot of insights shared. I learned also from Father of Father
Center for
for
Fathering.
Center for Fathering. So sorry about that, and also from Hafiz. I've learned a lot myself hearing from the two of you. But to the men out there, right? To the men out there, when there's abuse happening at home, right? You are not just hurting the family, but you're hurting yourself too, right? I'm sure nobody wants a broken marriage. I'm sure that is not what they want when they enter into marriage. Everybody wants to be happy, but it takes a lot of work to make things work, and it takes a lot of effort for a marriage to work. So don't be afraid to get help. Come and get help. No one is going to judge. We are, the FSCs, the FSCs, all this, Family Service Center, they are there to help you. And there's a lot of ways. Just now Hafiz say, what are other ways that men can help? And one of the ways is get in touch with these two gentlemen here, right? Start with conversation with them, right? They can always channel you where you should go for help. But the main thing is don't be embarrassed to come and forward and say, I need help to change. Yep.
Nice. Okay. Thank you very much, Zaharah.
Thank you.
All right. We hope to have you back again with
Can,
us.
can, sure.
All right. Okay. That's all for today.
Yes.
Thank you,
Until
everyone.
next time.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. This podcast is brought to you by Iman Catalyst Community, which is missioned to elevate hope by transforming lives through social education initiatives as well as personal development programs. We are the medium that come in between NGOs and their beneficiaries to enhance their sustainability and impact. If you'd like to know more, connect, and collaborate with us, you can reach us at Facebook and Instagram at Iman Catalyst. That's spelled EMAAN. And we would like to work and partner with you.
Thank you so much for tuning to this week's conversation. We hope that this episode helped you in your transformational journey as dads. If you like this podcast, make sure you review, follow, and share it with your friends. For more episodes and resources on fathering, check us out at We Are Dads Too on Facebook and Instagram.
We would also like to hear your comments and questions. So, please feel free to share them on our FB and IG pages and also our Twitter, and be connected to other dads too. Until next time, let's take the next step to be the special dad we are meant to be. Take care and stay safe.